and welcome to the BullCast podcast. I'm Court Winston, and with me today is Cameron Spann.
I am Cam.
And Dr. Jen Salisbury.
Hello.
Dr. Jen is back with us again today. We are still missing our female compatriot. Katie is still recovering from minor childbirthing. And
recovering. She's a mom. She's never going to recover.
Well, no, that's true. She has promised she will be back on the airwaves very, very soon. And until then, we have Jen helping us fill in for her so that we make sure that we still have the fairer sex represented on the podcast.
And the hello.
That's
She's got that down. Do you know how, of course you do. You know how musicians go into residency, like Adele, residency in Vegas? Mm-hmm. Dr. Jen has residency at BullCast for a couple weeks.
There you go. I like that.
So are we talking about awkward things today?
I personally feel like I could be an expert on the topic, but
same.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about conquering awkward conversations.
Let's face it, we've all been there, right? The moment when your heart races, your palms get a little sweaty, and
knees weak,
mom spaghetti,
and
that awkward silence gets extremely loud. Whether it's introducing yourself, say, to a stranger or delivering a tough message, that's my weakness, conflict. Awkward conversations are part of life and business.
Yeah, okay.
Boom. Mic drop. End of show.
Today we're going to dive into how to handle life's most awkward conversational moments. We've already welcomed and introduced Jen. She is obviously a very dedicated BullCast listener and fan and has proven as much by volunteering to help us out with these episodes. She also has her own podcast, My Life as a Landlord, and so she's a seasoned pro in all things real estate, from investment strategy to property development. Years and years of hands-on experience this woman has, and she has some no-nonsense advice. So Jen knows how to navigate through tough conversations, both in business and in life. And I can tell you from my experience with her, it would be fair to say that I tend to avoid conversations pretty much just from the outset, just not the type that is going to strike up a conversation with anybody. And the first time we met Jen, she was very approachable and very much just would come up to us and start talking to us without really having to do any of the work or you having, Cameron, to do any of the work. So that was great.
Those are the best kind of people.
Yeah.
And let me just say up front, if my life consisted of being a landlord, it would be full of awkward conversations.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, imagine you have to talk to people all the time if you're a landlord. I just don't know how that works.
No, you don't. It's okay. Just look, communication does not mean confrontation. That's not the same. So just if you do it right, and that's what today's podcast episode is all about, is making sure that things that seem awkward don't actually have to be awkward if you do it right. This is just going to help you do that. How'd you like that intro? Is that cool?
That's so cool. And we get to kick things off with an awkward list.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
Oh,
although I will say,
cringe-worthy.
Yeah, cringe-worthy TV and movie moments, the stuff that really makes you cringe a lot. Sometimes I have trouble watching that. So I had trouble getting into the first one on the list because it was just so awkward all the time that I really struggled with watching it because it just made me ugh. Anyway, why don't you kick off the list, Cam?
Sure. None other than Michael Scott from The Office. Have we all seen The Office? You talked a little bit about it. Yeah. Jen, have you watched The Office? Yeah.
I have. He is all things cringeworthy, for sure.
From That's What She Said, his little tagline about, any kind of entendre, or the just entire Scott's Tots episode makes you cringe, where he promises his high school he's going to pay for them to go to college, and all of a sudden they're grown up and ready to go to college, and he has to break it to him that he can't do it. Yeah. He can't afford it.
He doesn't have the money. It is pretty much the gold standard for awkwardness. The next one on the list, Jen, why don't you take this one? Because I know you said you are a huge diehard on this particular show.
Oh, I am such a Friends fan. And when Ross goes to London to marry Emily and he says the wrong name. Oh, cringeworthy, super awkward. Oh my goodness, that is crazy.
As a diehard Ross and Rachel shipper, I was perfectly fine with him saying Rachel's name at the altar. I did not mind at all that he completely blew up his marriage to Emily. And then, of course, I think it was the end of that episode where they had the big reveal of Monica and Chandler's relationship.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah, in London. Yeah.
So
I think we were all secretly cheering too, but seriously, that whole scene was cringeworthy. cringeworthy because they spent more than $1 on that whole London wedding thing. So, poor people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. The next one on the list is Real Housewives Bravo reunions. And I would add to that pretty much any reality show that has a reunion episode on Bravo. Those things always get awkward, especially if the guy, Andy Cohen, is the host. Man, he seems to just know how to ask the questions that make people just get super, super awkward. They have absolutely no problem. I mean, like on the show, Real Housewives, they have confrontations just to have confrontations. I'm pretty sure the producers are egging them on. But then when you get to the reunion show, for something like, for instance, I'm a big Below Deck fan. You get to the reunion show of a Below Deck and man, they start going off. It's crazy and super, super awkward. I hate it. I love it.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, I hate it, but I love it. Next one on the list.
Well, I'm going to jump around. I'm going to jump to one that I know well. It is an indie film back in, I would say, 07, 08 that blew up the box office, and that would be none other than Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes.
Jen, have you seen this film?
I have.
It's a classic, and it's just painfully awkward. It's almost like a fever dream of a film. But Napoleon, everybody in the movie is awkward, from the quote, "You gonna eat your tots? Do the chickens have large talons?" It's a highly quotable movie, but it's awkward for sure.
Terrible,
oh my goodness. I don't know. I got to throw in there, too. The Fokker's lie detector test. Where the dad is the CIA agent, but nobody's supposed to know that, and he's testing the son-in-law to be, and then the truth serum, and there's a couple of different versions of this all in the different Fokker movies. So that definitely is awkward. And then, of course, he keeps going. Even after they're married, he keeps trying to catch his son, Gaylord Fokker.
Yeah,
anyway, super awkward.
Are you going to milk me, Greg?
And that is an example of a movie that my wife loves, and I just cannot stand it.
Really?
Because Robert De Niro's character, I think, is so extraordinarily unreasonable throughout the first movie that he really goes off the deep end in the second movie. And I hardly remember the third, but anyway, super, super awkward. And Robert De Niro does nothing to take his foot off the gas and making it just uncomfortable for everybody.
I'm sorry, but Greg Fokker's mom, played by
Barbara Streisand.
I want to say Bette Midler, but it's Barbara Streisand, and she is a sex therapist.
Yes.
She's doing like sex classes, and these proper people drive up in their prim and proper RV. I'm sorry, that's even funnier than the lie detector test, is with all her sex books and sex paintings and stuff. It's just crazy.
I love it.
It's actually one of my favorite movies is Jerry Maguire, and you don't get much more awkward than the scene right after Tom Cruise gets fired early on in the movie, where he basically tries to rouse everybody at the agency where he's just been fired and get them to come with him. Who's with me? It's just crickets. Nobody's going to go with him. And then one person stands up and is like, "I'll go with you." And he's like, "Yes, you. Come on, let's go." She's like, "Yeah, okay, what am I doing?" Okay. Yeah, super, super awkward, terrible, terrible moment.
Oh, my goodness.
Jen, I'm going to save the last one on the list for you because it is such a classic. So I will take one that fits in with one Court already went over, kind of the Bravo shows. This is an ABC show, The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. My wife watches these, and I've caught some of it, and it is awkward. These staged dates where you don't know this person, but you're going to hopefully be engaged to them by the end of the show. It's, "Hey, can I steal you for a second?
Yeah.
Let's go talk over here in the corner."
Specifically, the "Hey, can I steal you for a second?" That never happens except for when the Bachelor or Bachelorette is in a conversation with someone else. Clearly, they're off by themselves talking about something. This candidate is trying to make a connection with the star of the show, trying to, get a little bit, and somebody walks up, interrupts, and says, "Can I steal you for a second?" Every time it happens, it just absolutely drives me crazy.
And can I say, these shows, the producers get the cast of 20-somethings drunk, and they take away their phones for weeks on end. And that is a recipe for drama. You feel a little out of touch, and you feel like things are a little more heated or real than they should be. All right, Jen, wrap us up.
I got to tell you, I actually was on a TV show on the Discovery Channel. You guys may not know that. It was a Canadian-based TV show, called Canada's Greatest Know-It-All. And I was one of the know-it-alls. It was an elimination-based TV show, and we were sequestered for a month outside Toronto, and it was sort of like, let's see, Survivor meets Mythbusters meets Jeopardy, and the whole goal is to watch the know-it-alls basically create drama, and at the end of each episode, one gets eliminated. And I can tell you firsthand that the TV shows, they want to create drama.
Oh, yeah.
And there were lots of different things where I could see exactly where they're trying to slant, and I went, I'm not playing into this drama. And so when they would interview me and try to get me to say things about certain people, I'd be like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm just completely deflecting. That's my Buffalo item that we'll get to later that you guys didn't know that I was on a TV show. Mm-hmm. Are you ready for me to wrap this list up?
First of all, I'm going to need you to text me a link to this video. And
surely there are clips out there that we can see. We need to watch this.
Oh, there are. There are. Not all of the episodes are findable, but I will be happy to send you a couple of them. They were kind of crazy, and it was full on, very intense. Definitely a breeding ground for drama, for sure.
And my second follow-up is, did you receive the good or the bad edit? You hear people in reality shows talk about, oh, I got the bad edit. They forced words into my mouth by editing it in a certain way. How was your edit, Jen?
They definitely played it the way they wanted to play it. Spoiler alert, I did not win Canada's Greatest Know-It-All. I was eliminated along the way, and the episode that I was eliminated in, I was slanted as the shocking loudmouth American. And so this was, and so people could tell that I was going to get eliminated because they had flipped the script on me on that episode. And so it just depends. Honestly, I knew this is what they were going to do because that's what TV is. I just had two truths in my whole being on this show. I told my husband, I said, I'm never going to lie, and I am absolutely not going to do anything that I'm going to be sorry and look back and see it on TV. But I'm not going to lie. Like, straight up. Like, they can send me home if they want, but I'm not going to lie. And that's what I did. And at the end of the day, it's still kind of fun to say, hey, I was on a TV show on the Discovery Channel. There you go.
Yeah, that is cool.
Anyway, there was a complete tangent down the side, but let's finish this list up of awkward moments. I love Inigo Montoya. I love him. I love The Princess Bride. And what's so awkward, really, there's one scene in The Princess Bride that is like the epitome of awkward, because his whole life he had been saying the famous line. Ready? Let's see if I can do it. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Hey, that was pretty good.
Did I do okay?
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Okay. So he'd been practicing the line for years. He said it. I should count how many times he says it in the movie. But at the very end, when he meets Count Rogan and he says it, what does the Count do? He turns and runs. So I guess it worked. It was still an awkward conversation, but for the Count, he was like, yeah, I believe you. I'm out of here.
I have watched that movie so many times growing up.
Robin and I watched it the other day.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, like we watched it maybe 2 weekends ago. Yeah.
I remember skipping school with my mom. My mom came and got me and said, we're going to go see the Princess Bride movie instead of going to work into school. Totally did that.
There is the list. Moving on to awkward conversations and how to conquer them.
Are we going to set certain scenes? Is that the best way? Should we give a scenario?
I think there are always going to be some scenarios that you can sort of point to and go like, yeah, here's a time when an awkward conversation definitely, especially if you're having it with me, is going to ensue. So what could we do to manage the situation?
Okay, so awkward scene or moment number one. Something we can all relate to. Meeting someone new.
Go to a conference or a networking event or a social situation. Conversation is not only expected, it's required. It's the whole point of a lot of these things. I hate networking events. They are my kryptonite. They are like, if I were to die and go to hell, then it's going to be a networking event.
And a lot of times it's because it's a lot of new people. You don't have this relationship capital where you can pick up. It's all fresh conversation, and you really have to be in your bag on it. You have to be feeling it, maybe a little liquid courage to get it going.
Well, yes, that's the other caveat I was going to say. Not only is it going to hell, it's going to be a networking event, but it's going to be a dry networking event.
All right. So Jen, meeting someone new, why is this awkward? Let's talk about it.
There's a couple different ways you can play this. So if we play this, the social situation. So like you're at a conference or a networking event where I kind of liken this to either you're going to be wearing a name tag, like at a network, like a conference or an after dinner networking event, like at a chamber or a Rotary function or something where you're wearing a name tag. It's sort of official. And then there's the non-structured one, like a dinner party at your neighbor's house or parents of a friend who plays ball with my kid, and you're not wearing name tags. And so for me, the name tag is sort of the delineator. it is the dividing line, because the name tag helps you. That's sort of the name tag borderline of how you do this. But really, let's go back to the social situation. So you're meeting someone at a small intimate dinner party, no name tags. That's a little bit different, and it can be way more personal, right? But if it's like a more professional business situation, you're wearing name tags, your Sharpie written on paper name tag that's stuck on your shirt, or maybe you're really slick and you've got one of the professional magnet ones or the clip-on ones that's on there, and you're in this situation, and now it's like you're being thrust into the arena. You've got your drink tickets in hand, your swag bag, or whatever you've got, and it's sort of like, okay, I got to go in there, and I can feel your head exploding here going, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever.
Absolutely.
But there's a couple ways to approach this. First of all, everybody in the networking situation realizes that it is awkward. Everybody's in the same situation, and everybody wants to sort of connect. There's always a reason why people are there. You're there to learn. You've got some issues going on, whatever. But let's say it's you approaching two people. There's two people having a conversation. Maybe you're in the hallway of one of those gigantic ballrooms. You're just approaching them. The question is, are these two people approachable to join the conversation or not? And you can tell from the outset, just with a couple of tricks that I use. Look at their feet. If their feet, they're facing each other. If their four heels, the two people facing each other, create a square, meaning their feet are sort of squared off, their shoulders are parallel, they're probably really having an intense conversation because of their body language. Just if things are squared off and you're looking at their feet and the feet are square, you probably shouldn't approach them to join their conversation. That's what I would call a closed conversation. Their feet are showing that they're very intense. But if they're just sort of looking around and there's eye contact to different parts of the room or different people, or maybe you catch one of their eyes, and it's a matter of figuring out, hey, can I join this? And in this situation, I would be what I call the hoverer. I'm the third party that's sort of figuring out, where do I fit in? And so walking up, if their feet aren't squared off, just say, hey, I'm Jen Salisbury. Nice to meet you. And you shake hands, and they're more encouraging. And that's where the next part of the conversation. Have I got you guys lost yet? Are you guys tracking?
No, I'm tracking.
You're tracking. Okay. So then the next question is, what's the first thing they're going to say? Hi, and they're going to say their name.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first thing that we all forget when we meet someone?
Oh, Jen, I am so notorious for that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And I think you may be getting into this, but I think it's because in my brain, I'm just rapidly trying to figure out what the next follow-up question is, that their name just goes right over my head.
But see, this is where the name tags, and especially if you're in a professional environment, and yeah, I know sometimes you have the badges, right, that hang, and sometimes the badges are switched around or whatever, and so you can't actually, so that's like really awkward, because now you really want to know their name or whatever. But if they say their name, then great, you can remember it, but honestly, you'll probably forget it within 10 seconds. Now, one of the tricks that Mike and I do, my husband Michael knows that if he comes up beside me and I don't remember the person's name, he knows this trick. If I do not remember this person's name, I will say, this is my husband Michael. And Michael will reach out his hand and go, hi, I'm Michael, what's your name? So I've got trained to have them say their name. Now, regardless if they're wearing a name tag or not, sometimes you can't see it, but that's another way that we can kind of, remember their name. Or let's be honest, sometimes I just have to straight up confess and say, I am really sorry. I know you just told me your name and I cannot remember it. Can you please remind me? And they'll say their name again. Now, one of the tricks that we've seen is, if you've ever read Jim Quick's book, Limitless, Jim Quick is a master at training your brain. And he talks a lot about memory and remembering names. And it's not that you have a bad memory, you just have an untrained memory. So I highly encourage you, if this is one of your fears, Jim Quick is really a master at this, and his book he's got several, but one of the ones that I like is Limitless. The next thing, once somebody says their name, is then what do you talk about? What's the first thing most people say? Where are you from? What do you do? How far did you travel? Are you staying at the hotel? I mean, it's just basic stuff. I recommend that you change it up. And I do something called high-low buffalo. Have either of you heard of this before?
No.
I have not, no.
It's really a fun thing, because in the conversation talking about the high-low buffalo items, all of that, the other stuff will come out anyway. So you ask them a question about something high, something low, and something buffalo. So the high question would be, hey, what's going great for you right now? Did you have a win this week? Some kind of high point that they would want to share. And in that, they'll say, hey, my son won the state soccer championship, or I closed on this real estate, transaction, or something else. You could also, for the low, you could also say, what's something that you're challenged with this week? Or, this is the one I like to use, where could I provide value, right? You can say, if the person says, I just had to fire one of my key employees, and say, you know what? I've got a great job recruiter that I've been working with. Maybe they can help you. And then you go down that way. How can I provide value to you? So that's the high and the low. And then the buffalo one is, what's something unique that we wouldn't know? And that was my buffalo item that I said before, is that I was on a show called Canada's Greatest Know-It-All. You guys would have never known that, and you've known me for years. That's the buffalo item. So it's a different way to make everybody chuckle and think a little bit outside the box. That's not just your standard sort of script of questions at these painful networking events that you go to. High, low, buffalo.
A non-intrusive icebreaker, like not awkward, because you kind of gamify it in a bit, and that kind of wraps people in. They're like, okay, I'm game. This is fun. Let's try it.
Well, the number one thing everybody likes to talk about is themselves. And so let them say their name lots. It's their favorite word, is their name. Let them talk about what they need. How can you provide value? And this is the best part, is because once you provide value, once you learn their pain points, then you have a reason to follow up. And guess what? Isn't that the whole reason you go to these networking events, is so that you can connect with people and help them, and they can help you in turn. There you go. Pretty cool.
I was in these two scenarios we talked about last week. There was like an award show pre-networking thing. My kids are going to a new school this next year, and so a couple families invited Abby and I over to like a dinner, like a couples thing, and I didn't know them. And I would say I prefer kind of the broader networking at the award show. I mean, it's very kind that these families invited us over, but that feels a little more personal, and you really have to put on your A game. When it comes to like a Rotary or an award show cocktail hour, it's just easier because you're probably not going to see these people again or run into them. So the stakes are low. It's hard to explain, but I think I prefer the broader networking over this very intimate dinner party where the only person I knew was my wife. And when she left the room with the other women, I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
Here we go. My wife and I used to do a thing through church where basically every year you were assigned a new group of 3 other couples. So it was a total of 8 people, maybe 4 other couples, so a total of 10 people, with including yourselves. Group of people that were basically in the same age area as you, with the same number of children, or with the same age children and stuff, to try and help you get to know other people in the church. You would, once a month, I think it was, go to dinner at one couple's house. You would alternate who hosted every month. And I remember the very first time we did this, it was extraordinarily awkward for me. But as you went back to these people's houses, or as they came to your house or whatever, and you got to know them, it worked. It was easier. And it never occurred to me during, even for the very first dinner, it never occurred to me that would be a horrible experience, or that would be something I wouldn't like, because I figured, first of all, we're Catholic, so alcohol was definitely on the table. There was no question that there would be booze there, so I knew that I would have something to sort of loosen me up. Okay, these are the 8 other people, or these are the 6 other people that I am intended to be meeting, and I need to meet them all and talk to them all and find out about them all, and they know that I am here to do that, and they're doing the same thing with me. Whereas at a networking event, I always have something in the back of my head that's like, those people really don't want to talk to me. They don't want to know anything about me. I have nothing of interest to say to them. What am I going to do? What am I going to say? So I end up standing in a corner.
It's just understood at these broad networking things, we're just all trying to get through it and get home. We're all in it together. Oh, man.
Oh, my. Well, Mike and I, we try really hard when we attend these events, because we live in Hawaii. It's not cheap for us to attend events wherever they are in the mainland or in the world. We have to go and we go, why are we spending this money? Why are we actually going and spending this money? And let's face it, the time, because we have to travel the day before at least. And then there's a lot of expenses in all of this. And so we'll say, okay, we each need to get 10 people that either can help us or we can help them, but we've got to have a connection. And so between Mike and I, that's 20 connections. That is worth our time. And many times we'll probably, have a longer term conversation over with 4 or 5 of these people, or they're in our phones and they're in our Rolodexes going, hey, this person had this going on, or this person had a really key consultant that they worked with. Maybe we should reach out to them. And so we connect with people, but it's got to be worth your time. The grief to dollars ratio to attend these networking events has to make sense. And for a lot of people who are off the hop, awkward about it and uneasy about it, it's hard. It's really hard. So we've created these games and learned a bunch of different tricks, and there's a whole bunch more that I could tell, but big social situations where, what if you forget their name? What if you have to part? What if you're not the hover? What if you see somebody hovering around you and someone else talking? Well, I always invite the hoverer in and go, come on in. I know this feels awkward. Come in and join us. Tell us your story. Tell me hi, low buffalo, right? And so I deliberately try to put people at ease, because it can be so
terrifying. The word you're looking for is terrifying.
Terrifying. I was going to say anxiety-inducing, but terrifying works.
Yeah. Well, that was awkward moment number 1 we just talked about. My palms are sweaty just talking about meeting someone new. Let's go deeper down the rabbit hole with awkward moment number 2. That would be confrontation within relationships.
Cameron and I are both confessed avoiders of all conflict at all costs. So hypothetical circumstance, it's a difficult one for us to tackle because it's something that instinctively I think both of us would rather just avoid at all costs.
Yeah, and this could be your spouse. It could be coworkers, boss, tenant, landlord,
Yep.
The list, any kind of existing relationship you have. So Jen, why does it get awkward?
Typically, when you've got any kind of relationship communication, if something awkward starts brewing, whether somebody said they would do something and then they're not, we've signed a lease agreement and they're not behaving, or they're not paying, or, you've got a family member who was going to do this and they're obviously not doing this, or they're doing too much of this. I mean, there's something that starts with a little bit of a nagging feeling, and you just avoid it. It's instinctive. You avoid it. And it doesn't get better with time. Awkward conversations just get bigger and louder as they grow, because what ends up happening is the same behavior continues because you get what you tolerate, right? And so this is what happens, is you just have to either fix it, like right when it starts to happen. And I don't let things get too crazy for me, because I just say, hey, this is what we've got going on. We agreed to this. You're acting this way. Either fix it or you're going to have to move on. I mean, there's a couple different ways you can do it, but what ends up happening, I've seen either in family relationships or really with our employees. We see this the most when we were doing our big build in Kihei in Maui. During our big condo build, we had employees that tell them, we had a daily safety meeting and we would talk with them and say, look, if there's anything anybody needs to talk about, we're in the office, you are encouraged to come and talk to us. And every once in a while we would have an employee come in, and it was like the cat that ate the canary. They would come in and it was like they just had to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so we always encourage everybody to say, look, you have permission to have an awkward conversation. You just need to tell us. So they'll come in and they'll say, I have to have an awkward conversation. And then Mike and I we just be quiet and we go, okay. And they just spill their guts and they just will say whatever it is. It's like, my mom is sick in the hospital in the mainland and I've got to take off work and I've got to go see her, or I can't make my rent this month, or, I mean, whatever it is that they've just got to spill their guts. We just literally let them talk until they're done. And at that point, they'll take a deep breath, and you can just tell, just by saying the words, they feel better, because now it's out. And I always ask them, I go, how do you feel? You probably feel great. You feel better. And they go, yeah, okay. Clearly you've been thinking about this a long time. This has probably been brewing a long time. What do you propose we do about whatever this problem is? And it could be they need time off. They need an advance so that they can get on a plane and go see their mom. They need more money. They need a bonus. They need a letter of reference so that they can go and buy a car. It's whatever they envision bigger than they were prepared to ask for. And now in their mind, it has become a confrontation. For Mike and I, it's just Tuesday. Like, this is okay. So whatever they're proposing that they need to fix, whatever it is, we can deal with it and just go, you know what, that's a pretty reasonable request. I think we can make that happen. How do you envision this playing out? If you need a pay raise, okay, that seems reasonable. How about we do this? How about we do that? We've just done any number of things. Just feels better when we know that the employees can go to us and they just spill their guts. And it's not just the employees, it's anybody, and say, I have to have an awkward conversation. This has been absolutely gnawing at me and I can't stand it anymore. And it's this and it's this and it's this, and this is what we need to do about it. And the biggest thing is you can't be petty or cruel. That's the biggest thing. Speak in facts. We agreed to this. We've hired you for this amount for 40 hours a week. We've agreed to this. We've signed a lease agreement with you for this. You've done this or you haven't done that. What are the solutions to fix it? And if you speak in fact and you're consistently speaking in facts, then it's not so confrontational. It isn't so terrifying. But you have to get there. And so, yeah, you have to still talk to a lot of people. But honestly, it's solving a lot of problems and awkward situations for other people.
There is a show on HBO, I think it's called The Rehearsal. Have you heard of this show?
Never.
Comedian Nathan.
I've never heard of it.
Okay. I am not familiar with the show that gave him his start, but it was sort of a similar kind of awkward situations kind of setup where he would deal with awkward situations. The Rehearsal has taken it to a whole new level where he has basically built an entire show around rehearsing for something, conversation that you want to have with a person, and he will help you go through every different scenario of how that conversation might go so that you can plan out how you're going to react in depending on which scenario actually comes up. And he takes it so far as to, for instance, in the very first episode, there's a guy who wants to have a difficult conversation with a friend of his, and he wants to do it in a bar. So I think the comedian's name is Nathan Fiedler. Anyway, he actually builds a replica of the bar where the guy wants to have this conversation with his friend, hires actors to come in and play patrons and bartender and wait staff and stuff like that, and then goes through the scenario with the guy having a fake conversation with his friend, repeatedly to go through every possible scenario until the guy feels like he's comfortable going and having the actual conversation with his friend. And the entire show is that kind of setup. Well, he just finished season 2, and season 2 was even crazier. He built a replica of he didn't build a replica. He purchased an airplane so that he could have people who were afraid of flying go through different scenarios of what it would be like on a flight. And they practice all of these scenarios in the very last episode. I'm not going to tell you what happened, but he may have been, while this entire season was going on, getting his pilot's license.
That's amazing. So this sounds like very expensive exposure therapy.
Yeah, really. But it is also he is extraordinarily awkward. He came up with this entire idea. At least the character that he plays came up with this entire idea. If it's not really what he's like in person, he likes to go through scenarios before he has conversations with people. So a service he would offer other people as well. And when Jen said they've probably gone through the scenarios in their head several times and have imagined how the conversation is going to go. And so, a lot of times it can be a relief when doesn't end up playing out worst case scenario for them. The show takes it to a whole different level. But anyway.
If I heard you correctly, when it comes to confrontation in relationships, your advice is to try to strip away some of the emotion and just state facts. Is that it?
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's a lot of what I see in business in general, not just between landlords and tenants, but in business in general, where you take it to the emotion and you go, I feel like you're doing this, or I'm stressed out, I'm this, I'm that. No. Take that away and say, we agreed to this. This is what you're doing, which is not in accordance with that agreement. How do you propose we fix this? It's very simple when you take the emotion out of it, and then you actually feel calmer about it when you can just go. You can still feel upset, you can still be stressed, you can still be terrified, but the words that you say and the movements that you make, whether it's a letter or sending an email or whatever, it's all about speaking in facts. And let's face it, a lot of the awkward conversations that we see, and that probably you guys see, have to do with money. And so money does not care about the emotions. Money doesn't care. And so when you're talking about money and you're talking about contracts and checks and wires and things like that, it is very black and white, and it really helps when you can say, speak in facts, go, we agreed to this is what happened on this day, this is what happened on this day, this is what I propose we do to fix it. It's either option 1, option 2, you pick, but we have to resolve this because this isn't what we agreed on. And it doesn't have to be confrontational. It's just, this is it.
Being a human is weird, you know? I guarantee you the dog next door doesn't get nervous about, I'm going to go bark at the other dog. What's he going to think of me? He just does it, you know?
Yeah.
Being a human is weird.
That's true. Very true.
Let's move to awkward moment number 3, the finale.
Yeah.
Let's call it the walk to the car.
The walk to the car. This is something that I have seen over and over and over. And this is where you have a meeting with someone or another party or another company or somebody that you have an awkward question or an awkward conversation that you must have at this time, or you're just straight up not going to have it. Either the time window is going to close, you're not going to have the courage to ask it, or whatever. And so you've had dinner or coffee, or you're having the meeting, and at some point there is the exit, and you walk the person to the car, or they walk you to your car, and it's the final moment, and it's like, it's now or never. Like, stakes are high. You need to ask that big ask of, hey, can I work for your company? Or, hey, have you given thought to the deal? Or, hey, I need to borrow X amount of dollars. Would it be okay if I gave you a call in 2 days to get on your calendar? But it's that walk to the car where not only is it awkward, it is now time constrained. I mean, I'm getting anxious even saying this on the podcast because I've been in this situation. It's tough.
Me too. This is definitely one of the most stressful. I'm just going through scenarios like, I would like to marry your daughter. You know, the time is running out and the conversation has naturally come to a close, and he knows we're meeting for a reason. So he's just sitting there. Right. Or you have to ask a family member if you can borrow money. I mean, the scenarios are endless, and they're all making my palms sweaty once again.
Right. Well, and again, when the awkward conversation or when the walk to the car involves money, I truly try to speak in facts and go, this is something that Mike and I are working on. We're looking for someone to help us with this investment. Is this something you'd be interested in? Can I follow up in 2 days? And if they say yes or no, it's not going to impact whether or not I eat dinner or I go home and sleep in my bed. It will change if they are involved in that deal. And so I just have to keep reminding myself, even though it feels anxiety inducing, it's still okay. That walk to the car and your example of asking her dad to marry the daughter, that is a perfect walk to the car scenario, because it's absolutely, terrifying, to use court words. Yeah. So it's obviously a high stakes moment. How would you say you nail it in this high stakes moment? Do you have any tips or tricks? My definition of nailing it is I am calm no matter what. Truly calm. And going, you know what? If they say yes, fantastic. There's a plan of action. We'll get on the calendar for next week. If they say no, I'm still going to follow up, thank them. I'm still going to send them a handwritten thank you card. And then I'm going to get on their calendar anyway, because what would a yes look like to them? And so for me, the connection is not over. The win is hopefully a yes, but that doesn't mean if they say no that the conversation is over, the relationship is over. It's not over with a no, if that makes sense. Yeah, it does. And I had a good friend give me advice last year, and I think it's been helpful. Mm-hmm. In these moments, it is very natural for us to fill awkward silence with words, just word vomit. Like, I hate the silence, I must speak. Mm. But to just let that silence ride and give them the seat at the microphone to talk, instead of forcing yourself to fill the silence, give it room to breathe and see what they have to say in response. Oh, no. I just was going to say, I have found that I do have a tendency to ramble and blather and word vomit and all of those things. And a lot of times I'll be in a conversation with someone and I'm trying to elicit something from them, and I will ask what I need from them, but then I will follow that up with more stuff. Same. And so I've had to teach myself to stop talking in those circumstances and let them actually give me an answer, or ask follow-up questions if they need to ask follow-up questions. Mm-hmm. Jen, what were you going to say about my life as a landlord? The silence aspect is one of my favorite tools to use especially when you're speaking in facts. Because remember, a lot of times these awkward conversations, people are expecting a confrontation. They're expecting a lot of drama. And that's not how we approach these awkward conversations. We approach them with fact and very reasonable facts. And we try to be, very, very calm about it and very factual about the whole thing. And so when you have someone come up against something and let's say they respond with some drama, they'll be texting or calling and they'll just be nothing but emotion and drama. Silence can be a great tool because they need to calm down. They have a little bit of time, let their mind catch up to their emotions and just let everybody calm down a bit. Now, it can also work the other way where the silence can actually fuel it and they get even more enraged. However, the facts are not going to change whether you respond immediately or you respond in an hour or 2 or 6. You know what I mean? It's really interesting how the tool of silence is a powerful one if you play it correctly. And it doesn't need to just be, you don't have to fill it all the time. You just don't.
That's good advice. It's so good, it seems like the perfect segue into our bullseye to wrap the episode.
That was quite a non-awkward transition there, Cameron.
Just bite the bullet and say it, We're at the 45-minute marker. It is time. Jen,
oh my gosh.
Jen, do you have a bullseye you'd like to hit to sum up everything?
You betcha. In awkward conversations, 90% of what you worry about never actually happens. So calm your worries.
That was succinct. My bullseye will be to try Jen's fun game at the next networking mixer, that High-Low Buffalo. That sounds great.
Yay.
I just will go with my bullseye, which is don't overshare. Stop talking.
Lean into the silence.
Yeah, just let if they want to fill the space, let them fill the space. You can just sit back, but you do have to initiate the conversation before you can then follow into nothing else to say, and awkwardly just stare at them.
That's frightening.
I'm sorry, guys. I got no bullseye on this one. This is any scenario is always worst case scenario in these sorts of situations. I'm 50-something years old. It's not something that I've ever grown out of. It's terrible. But anyway, good advice today from Jen. Do you want to plug your podcast?
I would love to. My podcast on all podcast platforms is My Life as a Landlord. If you want to watch us on YouTube, it's at My Life as a Landlord. And our website, you guessed it, www.mylifeasalandlord.com. There you go.
Oh, there's the closing bell. Ladies and gentlemen, you've made it to the end of yet another episode of the BullCast podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast beamed directly to your device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cortland, Katie, Cameron, Nicole, please go to our website. That website is bullcastpodcast.com. We've got pictures up there. We've got bios, content. You can check all of that stuff out. And we've got a place where you can drop a comment or suggest a topic you'd like to hear us talk more about. I mentioned pictures. We do have an Instagram. Our Instagram handle is at BullCast Podcast. And we have an X handle, which is at BullCast Podcast as well. And finally, we have a Facebook page rounding out the social media. That Facebook page is BullCast the Podcast. So check us out there. Drop us a note. We love the interaction. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, Cameron and I do work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. And if you'd like to find out more about us, you can go to that website. You can find out about us. You can find out about what we do, what we could potentially do for you, find out about our amazing team, and find out about our boss, David Pickler. Go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E. Ladies and gentlemen, we have given you everything you could possibly need, although I'm not going to be there with you, to go forth and socialize. So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Cam.
I'm Jen.
And we're done.